This program brings great minds from academia and industry to dialogue for national development. So at this juncture, I would like to invite the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor John K.M. Mawuto, to give us the welcome remarks. Let's receive him with a round of applause. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Our council member, the Dean of the Faculty of Accounting and Finance, invited guests, our distinguished speakers for today's special program, our students, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, I welcome you to the special program themed pre-budget dialogue. Indeed, this is a special program. I christen it special program because next year is going to be a special year. And whenever we have an election year, the budgets we normally prepare and expect the performance of the economy in a different way apart from the previous years. So once again, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, you are welcome to UPSA. Now, this year's program, we've met here to look at the expectation of the budget. What is in stock for UPSA, Ghanaians, and the fiscal performance of the economy as a whole. Very, very important. So when we ask, what are our expectations? I want to believe that each and every one of you here has an expectation. In order not to take the main conversation from the speakers by delving into the issues, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, I'll share with you some of my personal expectation as an individual and a citizen of this nation. Like we've always monitored our various budget, we always expect that we have an improved performance in the monetary and fiscal areas of the economy. So when I talk about monetary performance, then I'm looking at the rate of interest. The Ghanaian must go to the financial market to borrow at a lower interest rate. That is one of the examples that I'm expecting, that in the coming years we will have a very minimal interest rate, which will create a very smooth environment for the business men and women in this country. Then in the fiscal space, we are expecting the government to manage the revenue and expenditure in a very economical manner, such that our fiscal deficit will be a bit minimal, and we expect the government to generate more revenue in order to meet its expenditure. But typical of election years, there's this political temptation where successive governments have tried as much as possible to do things beyond their means. So as a finance person, I'm not expecting a radical projection for physical infrastructure, taking into consideration our operational needs. So if tomorrow we are to envisage or receive a budget that has serious projection for physical infrastructure, then the question we ask is, where is the money coming from? Very, very important. So in a nutshell, what I expect as a citizen of this country is that just as we are entering into into an election year, the government should be devoid of political, projects in order to put the economy on a sound footing after the election year. Over the years, we tend to run the economy into a level that predicts difficulties for the coming years whenever it's election. So I expect that the government will be a bit proportionate when it comes to political projects, which is normally tailored towards convincing people for votes, just because we need to keep the economy sound and kicking. On this note, I didn't take much of your time again, but once again, you are welcome to UPSA. We will now listen to experts who will, in fact, share with us in this very, very important conversation as to what we should expect the government to present tomorrow to the good people of Ghana through the Parliament of Ghana. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, there is a purpose for which we are here. And the one to tell us the reason why we are here is in our midst. So without wasting time, I would like to welcome the Dean of the Faculty of Accounting and Finance, Professor Isaac Boedi, to give us the purpose of the gathering. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
This is an initiative by the Faculty of Accounting and Finance, and to be precise, is championed or powered by the 5 Innovate Projects team. And it's important to recognize the contributions of our members, the faculty as well, and by extension, the entire university. I must also say that every year, institutions and other corporate institutions and organizations, they meet to deliberate on what will happen in the ensuing year. I will say that these organizations are not giving you the best. But when it comes to debates, discussions on national matters, you can't take UPSA out of equation. And for that matter, we need to discuss these important issues here today. It is not just a procedural formality, but it's rather a dynamic interactions that we want to have today. We have gathered seasoned people in these areas who will give very good contributions that will shape the economic roadmap of our country. And that is why we are here today. Because I've given firm promise that we're going to end on time, I think I will get out of stage and then we allow the show to begin. So we want to welcome all of you to this important platform. It's non-partisan platform, but it's a platform that will shape ideas, converge ideas, provide solutions that will shape our nation. That's why we are here today. And I must, on this note, introduce our chairman for today, who is my good friend, Dr. Ataboche. Because we are late, I will humbly ask to hold on with the remarks so that we can continue with our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Dean. Now we are set for the dialogue to begin. The panelists are ready and the moderator is also ready. So on this note, I would like to hand over to the moderator for the dialogues section.
Permit me to write on your established protocol to save time as well. As the Pro-VC said, this discussion is very important because of the expectations from this coming budget. It is no doubt that the year 2023 had some challenges so long as the economy is concerned. We are in a time of hyperinflation, inflation hitting over 50%, debt to GDP ratio over 90%, exchange rate exceeding 16 cedis per dollar in the year, petroleum price hitting 23 cedis and above per liter. The least said about unemployment in the country, the better. We are in an expectation of elections in the 2024. Therefore, the budget upcoming has a lot to expect from. It is good that the team has assembled a very rich panel for the discussion. We are going to do the discussion in two sections. The first section will look at the macroeconomic issues that made up of three panelists, and to save time, I will introduce them as they move towards the stage. The first person, in no order of preference, is an economist and the current head of Department of Economics and Natural Science, UPSA, Dr. Abdallah Abdul Mumuni. The next is an expert, a distinguished professional serving as the technical economic advisor to the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Samuel Kwadwo Frimpong. The next person is Mr. Mark Bedu Abuaji. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Ghana National Chamber of Commerce. He has advocated for favorable environment for businesses in Ghana. He has several awards for his managerial skills. Let's welcome him to stage. Now, permit me to take my seat. I want to start with fiscal issues. Recently, the UPSA published their report on Ghana's state of economy, and their major conclusion is that Ghana's major problem is not revenue generation, but rather expenditure. Looking at the trends of issues in the economy, what in your mind should be the key fiscal priorities addressed in the upcoming budget? Any of you can take it, please.
He is a politician, and he is also.
And maybe let me establish the protocol. The question can be directed to any of you. You may respond to any other questions, but let us also allow colleagues to express their opinion. This is not a political platform. Let us be objective as possible. Thank you. And let's minimize our time too.
Well, I totally agree with the conclusion of UPSA on this issue. Fiscal deficit, as you all know, it's a combination actually of your revenue and your expenditure. And for us, we have realized that our budget is heavily on revenue mobilization. And our concern is that if you look at where we get our revenue from, largely it's from taxation. So we have expressed our concern about the number of taxes that we have. If we are able to cut down on expenditure, the likelihood that probably we will not be expecting more revenue from only the few businesses that are paying the taxes will also be there. I'll give you a typical example of some of the taxes that we think that should be considered or taking a second look at in the 2024 budget. I have issue, and of course for the business community, have issue with the structure of our tax system. A typical case is the VAT.
Okay.
Everywhere, VAT is an input-output kind of tax. So for if a business should make a payment, the business can claim for the input VAT. 2018, our VAT system was the normal one, but they separated the NHIL and the GET fund, 2.5, and then they made it a straight line levy, which means that it becomes a direct cost to businesses. So if you pay, you cannot claim your input VAT on that. Currently, if you put our levies and our VAT together, it's about 21.9%, about the highest in the whole world. The question is, how do we expect businesses and of course consumers to be able to pay this tax? So if we're able to cut down our expenditure, of course there are a number of issues that we have had with the kind of expenditure that we have. We think that we can largely reduce it and still be able to work within the revenue that we have. Most of the time, we think that revenue, or tax revenue, is about introducing new taxes and also increasing the rate for existing taxes. So we have had since for the past 3 years, almost every year, we have new taxes being introduced and the rate for existing taxes going up. But the revenue that they are expecting, they are not getting. But these taxes are harming businesses. In fact, if you want tax revenue, it's not about increasing taxes or introducing new ones. It's about how effective you are in collecting those taxes. So I think that we have enough taxes as at now, and we don't expect any other tax from the 2024 budget. When we expect that they should look at the expenditure side. If IMF asks a typical question, you have budget deficit. How do you intend to reduce that budget deficit? Come out with the conditionalities that you think that you can do. And we are saying that we think businesses can pay, we think the consumer can pay. So let's put a lot of taxes on them. That is where we are now. So the cost of doing business from taxes is very high. That aside, if you look at the fact that for every quarter there is utility adjustment, from last year, September, till now, there's 72% increase in electricity tariffs alone. 72. Electricity constitutes 30% of the cost of production of a normal manufacturing company. So if you increase electricity by just 1%, you are killing the business. We have increased it by 72%, and that of water. So now they should save us. We know and we are aware as businesses we want to pay taxes. We want government to generate the revenue. Now they should put a brake on the revenue side and then look at the expenditure side. That for me will be able to reduce our deficit and also be able to stimulate the activities of the private sector. I get so worried when I see students like this. In fact, in the IMF program, there's a freeze on employment. For us as students, the only way for us to get job after school is to pray that businesses are doing well, is to pray that government reduces taxes so that we stimulate the private sector and energize them. They will expand and then they will employ.
Right. So
help us to
if I can come in a little bit.
Thank you.
Now let me follow up with a question before. So in sum, you are not expecting new taxes in this budget?
We are not expecting new taxes. We are not expecting that the existing taxes, the rates should go up. And we are also expecting that taxes, nuisance taxes like the COVID tax. Ghana is the only country that imposed COVID tax on businesses during COVID. COVID is way gone. We still have COVID tax. They should scrap that COVID tax from these coming taxes. Secondly, the e-levy, we think that the rate is high. When they introduce it, we said it, that for a new tax, for a rate of 1.5, you won't get the revenue. They did not listen. In fact, at the end of it, they didn't even get 10% of the total revenue they expected.
Okay.
They reduced it to 1%, and we have seen significant improvement in revenue. We are asking that they reduce it again to 0.5. They'll get the revenue.
I think you are trying to implement the Laffer curve.
Yes, of course.
When the tax rate goes beyond some point,
exactly.
Tax revenue reduces.
Exactly. And these things have been researched into, and it's real. Yeah. If you know the effect of these taxes on business, if you want to know, check our GDP for the first quarter and second quarter. We've recorded a 3% increase in GDP, growth in GDP. Drill down and look at the key sectors that will create a job for my people. Manufacturing sector contracted, construction contracted,
wholesale, retail, contracted. These are the sectors that we should support to ensure that they expand, create jobs. And when they do, they'll be able to pay tax revenue that we are getting.
All right. I think you have said enough about the tax issues. You also talk about reduction in expenditure. Can you cite any specific area to them?
Yeah, in this difficult moment, I think we should put hold on some of these projects. We all know that we need infrastructure. I don't think that this moment we need Agenda 111 at this moment. In fact, if you are able to go to La and pull down a whole hospital, whether functioning or not, and you have Agenda 111, are we able to construct these all hospitals at the same time? That is the question we need to ask. Okay. If not, in this critical moment, what are some of the infrastructure projects that we can at least hold on so that we'll be able to stabilize the economy? IMF, that is the simple way of IMF to bring economic stability, of which we are experiencing.
Yeah.
For free SHS, I don't have a problem. Probably we have to take a second look at it and look at those who will be able to pay at least to support government. As it is now, go to secondary schools if they don't have food to eat.
All right. So I think let's Dr. Frimpong also take his bite.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think I can understand my brother why he's so passionate about all the things that he's saying. But like you said from the beginning, I think it's very important that we look at this as a national issue and be very, very objective. Yeah. We have to look at both sides. As much as you are crying for the businesses, look at the government that is supposed to create the enabling environment for the business to grow. What role is the government expected to play? And what does the government need to do to be able to play that role? Well, when they say that revenue generation or mobilization is not an issue or it's not a problem, but expenditure is a problem, I beg to differ when it comes to that. I agree that we are generating revenue, but I can also say that it is not enough looking at the expectation of Ghanaians, the things that we need. I'll give you an example. If you look at our tax system, it's only very few people who pay tax in Ghana here. I think that what we should be talking about is how to expand the tax net that will have people to be able to pay taxes. There are certain businesses, especially those in the informal sector, who do not pay taxes, but they even generate more income. They even earn more than big businesses that are registered or that are seen as big businesses. I'll give you an example. When you look at restaurants, when it comes to VAT, for instance, restaurants pay VAT, but the chop bars do not pay. There are certain chop bars that earn more than even the restaurants that we see around. I use a lot of Kumasi Accra Road. I'll give you an example. There's a popular chop, I wouldn't want to mention the name. I didn't mention the name. On weekends in particular, if you see the cars that park there, and if they should tell you how much they earn, even weekends alone, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and compared to a restaurant like Linda Door pays so much tax, but that particular chopper do not pay tax. Now, if it comes to a business suffering, then Linda Door will suffer more than that chopper. So to me, I think it's important. But if you go to tax that chopper now, Ghanaians, you have other people supporting them. Also, this is a small chopper. Why are you taxing them?
Yeah.
So it's important. Taxation. You see, Ghana is not the only country that goes into taxing.
No, so you agree with him that there should be no new tax, but rather think about expanding the tax base,
which is very important.
So are you against new taxes now, or you are for new taxes in this budget?
Okay, so I think that what matters most now is to see how best we can generate revenue. Introduction of new taxes is not, for me, it's not a priority now. And the government is also sensitive about that. Yeah. We know the business environment, we know the challenges that businesses are facing.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, there are certain priorities that we have to look at when it comes to expenditure. We shouldn't just say that there's no need for government to spend. Like my brother said, he cited a very key area, Agenda 111. Well, to those in the cities, to them, that particular project is not a priority. But when you come from a community where maybe the whole district, there's no hospital, someone is sick, you have to look for a nearer hospital, which is a bit further in the next or third district, then you see the importance of Agenda 111 in your district. So for me, I think that when it comes to expenditure, priority is what we should be looking at. Let's prioritize things that are needed in the country. What is our priority? And then we spend towards that priority.
So you also agree that there's need for us to cut expenditure?
Yes, I agree. Because, I mean, you cannot just spend anyhow.
Can you suggest any specific area to government where that cut is possible?
For me, where I see it, and what I see government is spending on, all those areas are important. And I'll give you an example. Road, for instance. Road is a very important infrastructure that you cannot do without. When we are talking about food shortage, food security, for instance, there are certain communities that have a lot of food. I'll give you an example. There's a community called Abrapon in Ashanti region. They produce the largest, when it comes to plantain, the whole Ghana, Abrapon is the major source of plantain. The road from Abrapon to the district capital is so bad that sometimes it can take hours, if not days, for these trucks to convey a plantain from Abrapon to the nearest major city, which is Agogo. Now, if we say that it is not important, let's suspend expenditure. What about the road sector? So it is also key. Educational infrastructure, you can't do without.
No, so to you, there's no specific area in our government expenditure that can be
spending on, the areas that the government is spending on now, I think that they are key areas, they are very important areas that the government has to continue to spend on.
I think we
should rather find a way of mobilizing more revenue to be able to fund those projects.
The premises of this discussion is that it is not about revenue, it's about expenditure.
That is the challenge. If it's not about revenue, why do we go for loans if we have enough money or we are able to generate enough in the country? So revenue is something you cannot do away with. It's key. It's important.
All right.
You cannot just say that it's not an issue of revenue.
Thank you for your bite. Let's have Dr. Abdallah's take.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I think that both are important. Revenue is important, and then expenditure too is important. With regards to revenue, I think that what we need to do, especially in the area of taxation, is not to introduce more taxes, but to widen the tax net, to increase the tax GDP ratio. That is very important. What I've observed over the years is that we keep on taxing the same people. You mentioned, Honorable mentioned, that we have other people like restaurants who are not paying taxes, but we have not done anything about it over the years. We talk about it, but we don't do anything. So I think that it is very important for us to widen the tax net. When it comes to expenditure, I think that there's high fiscal indiscipline. We are talking about construction of roads. Yes, it's very important to construct roads. It's very important to invest in food production. But look at people working in the public space whose marginal fiscal product is virtually negative. In fact, they are working at places that they should not be. And that leads to all these problems that we are encountering these days. I think that something must be done about the high fiscal indiscipline.
All right.
To cut down expenditure.
Fiscal indiscipline.
Yes.
Will lead us to higher debt. Is that not correct?
Yes.
So let's say something briefly about debt management expectations from this budget. We know we always rush to IMF because we are debt saddled, and it becomes a chronic disease. From my perspective as a health economist, I would say that we are having a chronic disease, such as a mental illness. When you are on admission, you comply with medication, and when you are out of the admission, you go back to your behavior and you relapse. They bring you back for treatment, they give you the same treatment and you go back. This is the situation of Ghana. What are we expecting from this budget in terms of debt management? Are we going for more borrowing again? Are we going to have any other means to manage our debt? Any of you?
Well, I think that it's very important we look at I'm happy that we have IMF program going on now. The reason I'm happy is that it is going to guide us to make sure as government we don't overspend, because IMF program, they have a team that is monitoring what we are doing as a government, as a country. So we'll make sure that we don't borrow when it is not necessary, because don't forget, the more you borrow, that's why you are causing more problem for the country. So it is very important that we spend within our limit. So what I'm expecting from the budget is that the budget will take into consideration the revenue, the expected revenue, and also we make sure that whatever expenditure that the budget will come out with should be within the revenue. So we'll be able to cut our coat according to our cloth and not necessarily according to our size, because you may cut according to the size and the cloth may not be enough to cover you. So I think it's important that we consider our revenue, because that is concern to me, so that we don't go and borrow more, causing more deficit than we already have. We don't need debt this time that we are in the IMF program. So I don't expect that this budget will come out with more borrowing. No, I'm rather expecting that we'll limit our expenditure. And I'm careful when it comes to that, because sometimes it's difficult to tell which program to do away with and which one not to. What are you cutting? What are you stopping doing? But I think that entering into a political season, a political year, that's why we have to be very careful, so that we don't come out with programs, we don't come out with projects just for political reasons, but we come out with projects and programs that will be beneficial to the country and that will be able to help us not to overspend, so that at the end of the day we'll be able to remain within our limits.
Okay, Mr. Bedu.
Well, I think that we are probably overstretching the level of debt to GDP. There are countries with high debt to GDP, the US and the Koreans. The issue is your ability to pay for the money that you have borrowed.
Yeah.
And that also depends on what you invested or how you invested the money you have borrowed.
Yeah.
We have consistently been going to the Eurobond market, borrowing at a commercial rate and using it to finance consumption. Where are you going to get the revenue to pay back the loan? Go and check our loan structure, Ghana, and you realize that you have borrowed at commercial rate. When you borrow, it's like a business. You borrow and you expect that you pay. You invest in areas where you will generate revenue to be able to pay back your loan. So if you invest, if you consume, it means that you cannot pay. So if you are borrowing now, I expect that should be invested in areas that will create more jobs, areas that will stimulate private sector, and areas that will help businesses. You don't go borrow at the commercial rate and come and consume. In fact, if you have high debt to GDP and you invest in those areas, you even generate more revenue that will be able to pay for both the principal and the interest. Where we borrowed from, check our interest payment, which constitutes about 50 or 60% of our total revenue. And that revenue is coming from taxes. It's not coming from investment. If those revenue are coming from investment, together with the taxes that we have, you'll be able to pay all the monies that you have borrowed. So you borrow for a purpose. I expect that should be for investment that will earn us more revenue than for consumption. And I think that they should at least learn lessons now, that once you have opportunity to borrow, it doesn't mean that
don't go there.
Don't go and borrow.
All right, thank you.
As far as the budget is concerned, what I expect is that it should be anchored on fiscal and debt sustainability. What I mean is that it should work. It should be a budget that would lead to the achievement of internal balance.
Yeah.
By internal balance, I'm talking about price stability.
Yeah.
If there is a conditionality of unemployment, I expect that policies should be put in place for the private sector to be able to employ more people.
Yeah.
Job creation, we should put in policies that lead to the creation of more jobs in the private sector, since there is freeze on public employment.
All right. Doc, for the sake of time, we'll take the last two questions that we drop the curtain on that. One serious issue in the economy is the hardship, which is evident through the inflation rate. Inflation is so high that money ceases to perform as money. If you have 1,000 cedis in your pocket today, the following day you see nothing in your pocket. The 1,000 cannot even buy anything because it loses value. But over the years, we also realize that our monetary policies are not performing well. What do you think should be the way forward from this budget in the fight against inflation?
In the fight against inflation, I think we should be able to increase production locally, local production. Policies should be put in place to increase local production. And I think that the private sector can do it better. Access to credit, how do they access, the individuals access credit so that they can increase productivity. That is how we can bring down inflation. And then another way of reducing inflation is to be able to reduce this high fiscal discipline that I talked about. We should be able to reduce expenditure, especially in the public sector. Okay. That can also help in reducing, it will lead to the reduction in inflation rate.
Okay. Anybody will take a share?
Yeah, I think if you want to solve inflation, you have to look out from where the inflation is coming from.
Yeah.
And then you tackle it from there. I have identified 3 areas.
Okay.
One is expectation.
Okay.
Because when we started, I think last year or so, inflation was low. But we all saw the potential for prices to go up. So it built up in people's expectation. The second is the pass-through effect of the depreciation of the cedi. At the beginning of 2 years ago, I think it was 1 to 6. It jumped as far as 16 cedis. And if you look at it, our economy is import dependent. So whenever the cedi depreciates, it affects almost everything that we buy. If I'm importing and I get to the port and I have 21 levies and taxes to pay, some are in dollars, and I've imported at that high rate of exchange, definitely I'll pass that part of also to consumers. The other one has to do with the supply constraints. Inflation we are experiencing now is not demand pool, like people have money and they are chasing. No. I don't know whether you have there.
Yeah, that is what you are saying.
That's what you are right. But it's as a result of increases in the cost of production, which translates into high prices. Yeah. So let's look at it from the areas that I have identified and look at how we can solve each of this. Then let me come back to the interest rate. I think that we cannot use monetary policy solely to control inflation if it's not being complemented by the fiscal policy. Yeah. We have had consistently policy rate increasing from as low as 15 to 30% at its stand now.
It's currently 30%.
Yes, and we have seen inflation also going up, which makes the monetary policy alone ineffective. It should be complemented with the fiscal policy. Why am I saying that? If the governor of Bank of Ghana is increasing the policy rate, of which interest rate now is around 35 to 45%, but you are introducing taxes which will increase the cost of production, you are regularly changing or increasing utility tariffs which will increase the cost of production, the monetary policy alone will not work. So I'm asking, or we are asking the business community that the central bank should work closely with the Ministry of Finance so that they can complement both the fiscal policy and monetary policy, and that is the only way we can control inflation. Let's increase supply of goods and services, which require that the private sector should be strong. We should create a conducive environment for businesses. The cost of production, if interest rate is low, the countries around us, some are borrowing at 15%, they are borrowing at 20%. we are borrowing at 35 to 40%. And that's a business.
So the focus is making the business work, increase production, increase supply,
and also food inflation was the highest. Food and imported inflation. These were the areas.
That is great.
Now we have to look at this food inflation.
Okay.
I agree with my brother. What I want to say is that exchange rate is a major issue. Exchange rate was around 50% somewhere last year, but around now it's around 5%. It's not the best. We are still hoping that it is still we can still do better. It causes a lot of inflation because most of the things that we use in Ghana is imported, and that's why I was expecting my brother from the private sector to advocate more for Ghanaians. We need national orientation, and for me, any opportunity that I get, I try to tell Ghanaians that we need to buy made in Ghana goods more, no matter how expensive it is. That's what we can use to support our local industry. The government, the minute that the government has to do is the exchange rate to manage it, to make sure that at least it comes to its lowest level. The interest rate, which is very key, because most of the businesses have to go and borrow. Now, with the digitization that is coming on, and with the Ghana card, and I'll explain why. These are students, so just give me a minute, let me explain the importance of it. Most banks, the reason why we see the interest rate so high is because of the recovery rate. It's very difficult those days. I mean, now things are improving for the banks to recover the loans that they give out. When you go to the bank and you want to, even if you want to open an account, they give you a sheet of paper and they ask you to give a direction to your house, and they ask you to give a landmark. Now, the landmark that you are going to give, be it a mosque, be it a church or a watches seller, what if tomorrow that watches seller is no more there? Then it means that the banks will not be able to trace the borrower. But now with the digitization, we have your digital address. We know where you are located. It is matched to your Ghana card. So if you go to borrow money, you'll not be able to run away. The banks will be able to trace you. So it is helping with the recovery rate. And we are hoping that by the time we cover nationwide, everybody has Ghana card, the recovery rate by most of the banks will be able to help. And based on that, the interest rate will also come down. Now, when it happens that way, the private sector will now have access to cheap loans to be able to expand their businesses. But we have to encourage Ghanaians that we have to help. Let's buy made in Ghana goods, which is very key, which is very important. We have something that we call economy of scale. Chinese products are cheap because they are able to produce in large scales, and because of that, the production cost is less. Ghanaians are not able to produce that much, and the production cost is high. Because of that, their items are expensive. But if we're able to support their businesses and we're able to make sacrifices, we also see that their businesses will grow, and by the time we also realize
I can understand that. So what measures are we expecting this budget to make the Ghanaian business more competitive?
So what government is going to do, the expectation is that we have to put in measures to make sure that the interest rate is reduced, the exchange rate is able to perform better, because most of them, they import some of their raw materials. So once the exchange rate is good, the importation to reduce the cost of production, which also help them with their price. So the government will have to work on the exchange rate, will have to work on the interest rate, and also the inflation. These things also affect inflation, because once you import and the exchange is higher, no businessman is Father Christmas. So you also factor in your profit. That's what makes most of the things expensive, and prices also increases. We are expecting the inflation rate to be announced tomorrow. We are expecting that it will reduce. It used to be 50% plus, now it's around 40%, and we are expecting that it will be lower when it is announced. So hopefully the government will have to look at those areas, and that's what will help the private sector.
Doctor, don't leave the mic. This question is coming to you directly. I think this is your major question for 3 marks. Recently we saw some cleanup exercise in the banking sector, where huge sums of money was used. Not long ago, just 2 or 3 years down the line, you see some public banks still struggling. You are from the office of the Vice President, the head of the economic management team. Are we expecting some measures in this budget to revive or help those struggling banks?
Yes.
Or the banking sector in general?
Yes, this budget, we should expect a lot towards that angle. We are expecting that the finance minister will mention some of the measures that the government is going to put in place to help the banking sector. There's a likely that there's a fund that will also be announced, things that will cushion the banking sector. We are not happy to see people struggling, but the most important thing to the government is the investor or the depositor. We are protecting the depositor, which is very key to the government. So this banking sector issue or the depositor is the main person that the government is trying to protect. And we are hoping that a major decision is going to be announced tomorrow. The major decision is going to be announced as the finance minister reads the budget. And that's what is going to cushion the banks to be able to revise, especially the banks that you are seeing that they are struggling. We are hoping that once the government takes that major decision, that bold step, the banking sector will also be very supportive enough for the implementation of that, so that at the end of the day, the banks will also have their strength to be able to withstand the challenges that we face.
Doc, can you whisper into our ears?
I'm not supposed to. The finance minister is supposed to read the budget on behalf of the president.
Right.
I'm sure he will do that.
That's great.
To our hearing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You want to take your...
Yes, but it's not about
the banking sector?
Yes. Doug mentioned that Ghanaians should patronize made in Ghana goods. I think that it has to start from the government.
Yeah.
So that, because you know we are human beings, our ultimate aim is to maximize utility. It's not just to patron, but to maximize utility. I don't have to buy an expensive item to be able to maximize utility. So I think that it must come from the government. The government must cushion the private sector so that they will they will produce at a lower cost and be able to sell to individual or consumers, and then they will also patronize. But if we just keep on talking about patronizing made in Ghana good, it will not work. It will not work, because for every individual, we expect that the individual is rational and aim at doing what? Maximizing utility. So that is what I have to say about that.
Okay.
Just talking about...
Maybe now in the next 1 minute, just give us your last comment. 30 seconds each.
Okay.
Your last comment, general comment.
Generally, as far as this budget is concerned, I expect so much to be done in the area of reducing inflation rate, cedi stability, because we need to stabilize the cedi. We also need to increase the tax GDP ratio, not necessarily introducing new taxes, but I think that efforts should be made to widen the tax net so that those who are not within the net will be roped in. It is not in our favor to always increase the tax rate. Otherwise, the Laffer curve, as you mentioned earlier, will set in, and that is not the best.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Doc?
I'm expecting that this budget will look at policies that will be able to help reduce the burden on the Ghanaian, as we've been doing already. I'm also expecting that this budget will come up with policies or strategies in particular to be able to expand the taxpayers. For me, that is my main concern, so that not the very few people will not be burdening the few who are paying taxes, but will be able to expand that. I'm expecting that this budget will come with strategies to be able to do that. And also expenditure, clear line of how the government intended to spend, especially being an election year, so that we don't run into budget deficit.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'm expecting a very conducive business environment. Policies that will enhance the business environment for businesses. To add up to the broadening the tax, I think we heard this thing way back. I haven't seen any proper strategy towards broadening the tax net and bringing people in. Majority of people doing business are in the informal sector. How do we formalize the activities so we can also tax them? And I think that the GIA going forward, so Ministry of Finance, should focus their effort on compliance and efficiency of collection of taxes. For me, that is key. if the few people that you have even identified, if you are, all of them are complying, we'll be able to increase the tax revenue. Estimate from GI indicate that 15 million individuals, business and institutions are supposed to pay tax. Only 3 million are paying. So the taxes are being piled up on the 3 million. The rest 12 million, what are they doing? They are all benefiting from the road, they are benefiting from the schools, they are benefiting from all the infrastructures that are being provided. What are their contribution to the national activity to ensure that we are able to provide these support services to them? So good business environment, and I think the private sector is ready to take advantage of that and expand and create more jobs for all of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. For the sake of time, I will invite the panelists for the second section. We expect Dr. Joseph Obing. He is the president of GUTA, Ghana Union of Traders Association. He is known for his advocacy for favorable business environment. Doctor, you are welcome to stage. We welcome Dr. Kofi Oseyedu, the acting head of research department for Exim Bank. We expect Mr. John Awuni. We also expect Mr. Asaki Samson Awingobit. This section is on some specific sectors of the economy. We're looking at trade, industry, agriculture, and taxation expectations from this budget. So, gentlemen, you are welcome to this discussion. All right, I think we're here for the first session, so the protocol is maintained. Looking at our trade policies and market access, I think what is very important is Ghanaian businesses also having access to the market. So I want to ask, looking at the current trade dynamics, what adjustment to trade policy do you believe would enhance market access for Ghanaian businesses, and how can this be incorporated into this budget? I think let's give it to Dr. Obing.
Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you. Yeah. I hope you know that the trade that we do not do it in isolation. We do it with the member states of West Africa. Even for that matter, Africa, now because of the Continental Free Trade Area. So it is important that we create the enabling environment. And we should also know, me coming from the distributive sector of the economy, should know how important any vibrant economy thrives on vibrant distributive sector. And so, first, we have to create the enabling environment. The business that we do, I've said that we don't do it in isolation. We also do it with our consumers. And so anything that goes against the consumer works against the trading or the business community. So then we have to work on areas like inflation, high cost of doing business, so that we can have a serious asset to the market that we require. Because now, inflation has eaten the consuming power, the purchasing power of the consumer. For that matter, it's curtailing the turnover that we need to thrive as businesses. So it is very important that we work on inflation. Matters we are also working on the prices cost of doing business, especially the taxes. We have to prune them all down. Because the inflation that we are experiencing does not occur out of the vacuum. I do not believe that it is through the excess liquidity in the system. The inflation that we are having is a cost-pushed inflation. That is accumulation of cost. And if you do not do anything, then no matter how many monetary policy rates that should be increased by the Bank of Ghana is going to curb the inflation. And so we have to do all these policies to make businesses affordable. We have been saying that tax to GDP in the sub-region, ours is the least. Ours is the least and is justifiable so because cost of taxes are very high and taxes are very many compared to the rest of the member states in West Africa. So, like what Mr. Mark said, the revenue enhancement thrives on compliance. Because their taxes are affordable, they are able to also achieve the tax to GDP above 18% and the kind. And so if you are able to work on the cost of doing business, it will help these assets that we're talking about. And let me not also forget about the credit. We have access to credit, but we don't have access to affordable credit. And these things are also impeding against the growth of businesses, and we are not competitive at all in the sub-region. Thank you very much.
That's great, Doc. So it's like you're talking about the enabling environment. How friendly is the business environment in few ways in Ghana? How friendly is the environment at all?
Yeah, let me just tell you about the true state of doing business in Ghana, and you make your own inference.
Yeah.
During the last quarter of 2022, because of the effect of the depreciation of the cedi, most businesses have their capitals depleted over 50%. And then we have to also enter into agreement with the IMF, and then the conditionalities that come with it is such that new taxes have to be imposed on us. Alongside the old tax that we have been crying on, new taxes have also been imposed on us. Then, of course, doing business have cost of clearance have become very expensive. You go to the port and the cost items numbers about 20. When the vice president brought the paperless system, we were able to prune down these cost items at the port to about 12. Now they've gone back to about 20. And it cumulates to about 55% to 65% of your invoice value. What that simply means is that when you import goods and the goods is worth, for instance, $100,000, one have to go and find between $55,000 to $65,000 to pay your duties and taxes. This is unprecedented. Nowhere in the world, not even in the advanced nations, that one can pay that much of duty, levies, and other charges, and it's happening here. When it happens like that, that's why it stimulates smuggling and other things. Then we have said that we are also not competitive in the sub-region, and then utility charges have gone up. I can say many. But the last one that is also breaking the back of the camel is the structure of the VAT. The VAT as it's structured is not uniform. It does not also ensure compliance because one tax system has three forms. We have until 2021 we are paying flat rate of 3% across the board. Now we are being migrated to the standard rate where we have to pay 15% plus the straight levy of 6%, cumulating to about 21.9. Then we have to also
I think you have said enough. You have said a lot.
Yeah.
You have said a lot.
Yeah.
Let's take.
Excuse me. Then I've said that it is in three forms. So the first one is the standard rate of 21%,
Yeah.
and then those who pay the flat rate of 4%, and by virtue of the threshold of 200,000, there are those who are not made to pay the VAT at all. What tax system is this? It doesn't ensure uniformity. It doesn't ensure compliance, and that's why you heard the traders being up in arms against the GRA when they wanted to go and do invigilation. So all these things go and work against the environment that we find ourselves in.
Look, it is very clear. It is very, people who follow you know what you actually mean by these few words. That's great. Let's take from the other participants what measures we are expecting to make this environment a bit favorable, specifically to make our local businesses a bit competitive.
Well, thank you very much. You know, generally, we talk about making the environment competitive and then market access, trade. But trade flourishes and does very well when you have regular supply of the product. What I keep on hearing in this country is that, oh, there's no market for local products, no market for this. So you have the rice people, local rice producers. There's no market to protect the market so that we can be able to sell our goods. Poultry people, there's no market. Provide market so that we can do that and all that. In fact, there's a friend that gave me a story. He is in the NGO world, and they are one of their responsibilities was to promote market access for share butter and all that. And they kept on making a whole lot of noise that there is no market for share butter, no market for share butter, no market for share butter. Now there came a time that international supplier got them and said, we want 40 containers of share butter. And for us to begin with, give us one container, 40 footer. True story, one container, 40 footer. And then we will see the quality of the product, and then we can move on to the 40 containers, and then there and there and there. According to my friend, apparently the office shut down. He who is the CEO of that company had to go into Tamale market, went to Bolga market. They were now begging women to put this share butter thing all together, and that so that they can even be able to meet the 40, the one container. I've been the president of the Ghana Rice Interprofessional Body since 2000. In 2004, I was the vice president for 4 years, and I became the president. There's nowhere in this country that I haven't been to except Upper West, promoting rice and all that. I'm one of the first people that try to ensure that locally produced rice, together with the late Koret Kwashiga, for us to package locally produced rice, process it, package it, and then sell. Throughout the period, what I have gathered is that essentially we sit there and we assume that the Ghanaian farmer or the Ghanaian producer doesn't have the market. But when you provide the market, they are not able to meet the demand. And for you to be able to do trading very well, you need to have regularity of supply. The rigidities in our production sector is so vivid and so serious that in the common budget, the finance ministers must look at how to address it. We do not have, the former Minister of Agri, Kwesi Ahoy, came to power, I suggested to him, I said, listen, we don't have, you want to produce, you want to restrict rice supply in this country, rice imports into this country. You want to restrict poultry imports in this country. Does the Minister of Agri have real data on how many farmers produce rice in this country? No, the Minister of Agri doesn't, they don't have it. If they are listening to me and they have it, they should challenge me with that. They do not have it. So if you do not have the number of farmers that are producing rice, how then do you know what acres or hectares and whatever and all that? You don't have it. If you look at the issue, because of time, because there's a lot to talk about for students.
So let's keep it short. Let's keep it short.
If you look at the area of poultry, you're talking about poultry. It's not just about producing fowls. For us to go and catch the fowl and then produce. Look, me sitting down here, the nature of my heart, I can't slaughter a fowl. Now, if you go and buy a live bird, how do I slaughter that fowl to be able to for them to cook in the house? So what I mean is that you need processing, and after processing, you need packaging. If you want to trade in the market, you need a certain level of quality. You want people to substitute from the imported one that has a certain standard, a certain quality, certain labeling. You want them to switch from that to your product.
So how, in what ways can this budget address these challenges you're talking about?
I am exposing this to say that every budget, for the sake of the students, budget is not some humorous this thing. It is something that you have a certain amount of money and you are using that money to address your problems. So I'm exposing this to say that the budget that is coming in must begin to look at this kind of rigidities. How do you address problem in processing in the agricultural sector? How do you address process in the production sector? Agronomic practice in the you want to restrict rice import. You don't wake up one day and they say that you are restricting rice imports by raising the taxes. The reason why the prices of rice are very high in the market, the landed cost of a product, a bag of rice at the Tema port is about 400 cedis. The selling price is 750 cedis. The difference are the taxes and a bit of margin. Now, if you say, okay, well, we keep on, and since 2001, I've been part of the Ministry of Agriculture, I've been part of policy, government policy on it. And all is that let's increase taxes to protect let's increase, and you are just burdening what? The consumer. So in this budget, you should look at ways that you can be able to address these rigidities. Otherwise, we are going through a vicious cycle of promote market access and all that. You bring in rice, like for instance, if you come in the Nakama budget tomorrow, then the financial, okay, we have banned rice importation. It is not that easy. Those who do not know will embrace we've banned rice production. But listen, the rice that you eat in the market are not fresh rice that is produced in the market.
So the main point is government budget to try to address the rigidities in the supply of our locally produced commodities.
In our agricultural sector, rigidities in the manufacturing sector, so that for trade to thrive and for the Ghanaian person to be able to do well, you must put in policy that will ensure regular supply of the product in the market.
Okay. Let's Dr. Kofi do also respond.
Thank you, bro. I personally think we are practicing trade liberalization. So definitely competition is key. You can't have an economy without a competition. And Ghanaian business owners have to get it clear that they are competing with people from outside Ghana who have advanced technology. For us to compete well, government has a role to play. I believe that government has to up their game a little to help business to flourish. What I mean by government has a role to play is that my brother just spoke about rice production. How many senior high schools do we have in Ghana? Because this is a business. We have a lot of senior high schools in Ghana. Now we are thinking of made in Ghana rice, promoting made in Ghana rice. If we are able to equip the farmers and informing the farmers that now there's a ready market, any quantity that you people produce, those in charge of free SHS will absorb all your rice, pay you off for you to get enough resource to increase your production. Because a lot of people are not buying made in Ghana rice because they have challenge with the made in Ghana rice. People are complaining about the quality, about how they process their rice. You can only process when you have equipment. How will they get money? Because people still have money that they have to go to bank for loans. And we all know about interest rate, and I don't want to talk about interest rate.
a rice farmer going for a loan from maybe any commercial bank, we know how this farmer will go through to even get access to the loan, and the payment too will be a challenge. Now, if government established maybe a board under free SHS, those in charge of the food supply, government get to know that, okay, I'm absorbing all the rice that people are producing. After production, you sell to the government direct. Government needs to do something, program in senior high school that every week students supposed to eat at least made in Ghana rice once a week. You know, these things are about our taste. We all did economics. Taste and preference also comes when it comes to demand. But we can modify someone's taste. Yeah. If you keep on giving someone something to eat, over time the person will develop taste for that particular commodity. That is true. So we have to start it now. That for us to produce made in Ghana, promote made in Ghana, we are trying to start from the senior high schools. And we know the number of students that we have now. If you don't take, even the rice producer will not be able to feed all the senior high schools that we have.
Yeah.
That is a way for the rice producers to get money. Not only about rice, we have maize. We have to find a way, deliberate way, to help farmers get access to money. Not in the form of loans. Even if they are going for loan, they know that after taking a loan from a bank A, government will pay, government will buy all my output. Then I can pay the bank.
To summarize it.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say here is that government has a role to play by helping our farmers to get access to resource.
Yeah.
In a way, government can also decide to buy all the output from them. Then buying from them, they will be able to pay their loans and increase their production, and they can be competitive.
You are focusing on the agricultural. Can we be specific of our expectations from this budget? Things that can enhance productivity, ensuring food security, and also promoting sustainable practices in agriculture in Ghana?
Thank you. When you look at what the first panelists spoke about, they made mention of inflation. We started inflation in January, it was around 50.3%. Now gradually it has reduced to 38.1%. That's as of September. The inflation rate, year on year inflation rate is about 38.1%.
That is correct.
When you look at the component of the inflation, the food inflation as of September was around 49.1%, and non-food was about 28%. Looking at the data available shows that the food inflation is contributing more to the year-on-year inflation rate that we have been registering and we have been recording. So if you are able to solve the food inflation problem, the inflation rate will drop. How do we solve the food inflation problem? One, government every year comes out with what government want to do to help the agriculture sector. And the key thing is that I don't think it's about policy. It's about implementation. Because we started learning products of agriculture in JHS 1. Some of you started even learning as early as class 5 and class 6, products of agriculture. I completed senior JHS in 2000. And they were top products of agriculture and solution to the problems. Last month, I checked one of my case assignment. They were talking about products of agriculture and solution. I gave the same problems, the same solutions, and my daughter got everything right. Tells you that we are still having the same problem and we are providing the same solution. So if we know the solution, talk about irrigational facilities and those things, we know the solution. Why have we not been able to translate the policies that we have, implement them well, and get the results that we are expecting? So what we need to do now is that I personally believe that we have to go back to state farming. People may get me wrong, but I believe in state farming. We have a lot of extension officers. We have district directors of agric. If we can tax them, instead of managing other people's farm, we can tax them that every district that they produce rice, we are trying to collaborate with the chiefs and opinion leaders to help us to get at least 1,000 acres in rice growing areas. Then the district directors will help them to cultivate 1,000-acre farm. Since the district director of maybe agric
having extension officers, they will make sure that at the end of the year, they'll be able to produce adequate rice to feed the economy. Because if you keep on relying on individual farmers, about 80% of our farmers are peasant farmers. Let's get it right.
Doc, let me come in a little bit. You are advocating state farms at this time, when we are advocating for private sector participation to act as an engine of growth. We are encouraging privatization of our public assets. Can you come clearer on this?
Yes.
Advocacy.
The basic economics will tell you that if you decide to push private sector to get the level that we start private sector-led economy, they will decide what to produce, when to produce, and how much to produce. Now, this private sector needs a lot of resource to produce. We have state people that we have employed, extension officers, we have district directors of MOFA working in every district. Now, the challenge with government now is that with the private sector, they have to go back to this financial institution for loans, and they have been complaining. Now we have a lot of ways that government gets money for production. What I mean is that we have Ghana Exim Bank. We are into funding government projects. If government decides to embark on 20,000 acre rice production, having extension officers there, having directors to take care of that one aspect, then Exim Bank will be willing to finance that one. We have financed private individuals to enter into farming, and up to now they have not been able to pay even 1 cedi to us. But if we have extension officers being paid by the government, we have guys being paid by the government, and we tie that one to their promotion, they will be able to manage the farms well. When you go to this people, national service is now into agriculture. They have employed their own extension officers to help them, and they are doing well. I'm telling you that when it comes to maize production now, they are leading and they are doing well. So I'm not saying that we should find the best.
I know you very well. If I give you the time, you continue talking, and then we will not leave here today. You still have the staff, but let's give Mr. Samson also a chance to have a bite.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Moderator.
Yeah.
First correction. My name is spelled Asaki. I've seen that my name is spelled wrongly. That's first correction.
Oh, sorry for that.
Number two, I was thinking that the first couple that did the presentation, you were going to allow the students to assess them and to ask questions, because my very good friend from the Vice President Office, Dr. Frimpong, said that Ghanaians' expectation is too high. Who promised them? You say our expectation. You say we have a lot of expectations. You didn't mention. I mean, if the video people can record it, because expectations, because who promises? It's the government that promises so many things. So indeed, we expect the government, or else the government is biting more than it can chew. Because if you go and pull down the hospital like the gentleman was making reference, and up to now you've not built it, you think the people shouldn't call on you? If you say Agenda 1111 and my village, my district hospital, if one is supposed to come to my district, and my district is expecting that we have a district hospital within Agenda 111 within 1 year, and up to now they've not built it, I will ask. That's the expectation that Ghanaians will ask. So government has promises. You remember again, government, one of the budget, the government said they were going to cut down coupon, apprentice coupon. Government said they were not going to use V8. As you speak, I'm sure if I go out now, probably I might see Mr. Frimpong, Dr. Frimpong coming with the V8. I'm only saying, but that is what is happening. They cutting down expenses from government should be key. First place, because government is spending so much. Beyond it, government own policy that say that we cannot spend Bank of Ghana more than 5%. Government spend more than 5%. Prime rate. You remember beginning of this year, I remember, the governor of Bank of Ghana led economic monetary policy team. And at the time, I think March, the prime rate was around 14.5 or 14.3. They upped it to 17 point something. And the governor of Bank of Ghana faces the media and said the commercial banks should also up their interest to fight inflation. They did that 3, 4, 5 times. Am I right? Up to date, has any inflation come down? 38 point something. Never 30. Well, today's one. Today's one. Okay, fine. But we are dealing with
maintain your focus.
And even with 33%,
don't listen to him.
It's still affecting our pockets. The purchasing power of Ghanaians is dwindling, and I can tell you, parents are sitting in this hall. The students are sitting here. They call their parents for money. They tell them, my salary is scanty. Government has not increased anybody's salary to any significant percentage that I know, so far as I'm aware. So I can tell you, but government, what the government do? Government then run to us, the business community, and keep on piling taxes on you. And government is not rather reducing their own expenditure, but they expect business community to pay. And if the business community is paying and seeing you enjoying luxurious life, he will fight back. Hence, the demonstration everywhere. That's the fact. We are not going to hide it. I heard your pro-vice chancellor saying that it is to mean academic purpose. Yes, it is, but that's the reality. You must activate it. Let me take you to the report.
Now let's be specific with the issues so that let's avoid political.
Yes, so I'm taking you to the report to see certain percentages. I don't know when was last time you went to present. We have ECOWAS levy 0% at the port. We have AU levy 2.0% at the port.
But we agree that yes, we have huge taxes on business.
Yes, we have.
So the question we are trying to address is what specifically are we expecting from this budget to make the business environment more favorable?
That's why
let's be specific.
That's
on
why
our expectation.
That's why I'm giving you percentages at the port that makes things uncomfortable for business community. And if these things are taken care of in 2024 budget, then of course we cannot talk about government has listened to our cry or our plight and respond to it through the 2024 budget. That's why we need to know what are some of the things that we expect to be said tomorrow when the finance minister appear before Parliament. We have Exim Bank. You are from Exim Bank. It used to be Edif Bank and Edif, right? It used to be Edif and it metamorphosed to become Exim Bank. As we speak, business community who is clearing poultry at the port, who is clearing rice at the port, is paying 0.75% CIF to bank. In fact, I can ask him. He's sitting here. How many of my people have come? Because they're supposed to enjoy it. They are contributing. Every month, if you are paying a duty at the port, you pay 0.75% to Exim Bank. Again, doctor. We understand that aspect. We all agree that the taxes are huge. It's making the business environment uncomfortable. Let me ask Dr. Obi. We've seen tax officers at business shops in the marketplace these days. Now,
we all complaining about tax rate, number of taxes this time. From theoretical point of view, we know that voluntary tax compliance gives higher tax revenue compared to deterrence approach. Are we taking advantage of these theoretical perspectives? Are we trying to encourage taxpayers to pay tax voluntarily? More specifically, the business community, have we reached our tax thresholds?
Okay.
Yeah. So we are talking about the GRA or government adopting pragmatic and efficient way of tax collection.
Yes.
If you have that one, I mean, you are there. It's not that we just taxes are just recycled along just a few of us who are paying, and that's why I told you that if you compare, because we travel to the neighboring countries with the Ghana Shippers Authority as a funding team to see the cost of doing business over there. And what we noticed was that Ghana was leading. Ours was very high, the shipping cost charges, everything, the taxes that we pay. And then we come home and whilst we are paying the highest of tax, our tax to GDP is barely 13%. Whilst those countries that we visited whose taxes were very low, their tax to GDP is over 18%.
Yeah. So
it means that affordability, simplicity of the tax and compliance is the key of tax enhancement.
Yeah.
And that's what they fail to know. So you do not adopt machoism to get the results. The invigilation that you do, adopt a pragmatic system. You know, VAT is a consumption tax.
Yes.
There is a consumption tax, but when you come to Okanshi, you go to Techima, you go to Tamale, you go to Mantosi Market, the traders there are using their own money to pay the VAT.
Yeah.
They are doing so because the consumers are not prepared to collect the VAT. So there's no even a policy, because if you are doing a policy, then the policy should be comprehensive. You said this is a consumption tax, and there's no punitive measures for the consumer who is to take, but then the punitive measure is on the person who is collecting on your behalf. And so we said that we use the VAT to pay for school feeding. We use the VAT for health insurance, for so many things. So government should, as a matter of policy, make it as a reference or demand the payment of VAT before one can even assess this benefit. Otherwise, the consumer does not know his responsibility, and the way the tax system is structured does not ensure efficiency, because one tax system, we have the one who is paying 22% by virtue of threshold over 500,000, and then those who are below 500,000 are paying 4%, and those who are below 200,000 are not made to charge at all, and we are all confined in one marketplace. Who made this system? It doesn't make sense. So the consumer, I believe you, the moderator, will not go to the market and then buy from the one who is charging 22%. I don't think so. Any rational being, and neither is the person going to buy from the person who is paying the 4%. You go to the one who is not made to charge the VAT. So it's a system. You have to make efficient system, workable system, and that will ensure compliance. Okay. And the taxes doesn't mean you have to take, because the tax base is very small. Yeah. And Mr. Mark was saying that we have to look at other areas like construction industry. Let's take construction industry. Construction industry take a chunk of national resources, and the people who are employed there, almost all of them, about 80%, do not pay.
So your clear message is that we have reached our threshold of tax tolerance. Is that not correct?
That
you have reached your threshold, so long as your tolerance of tax is constant.
Yes, and even beyond. And the taxes are being
with that beyond, it means that when taxes are reduced, tax revenue can increase. Is that not correct?
And certainly, let me give you one example of compliance.
Yeah.
Before we brought the benchmark values.
Yeah.
In 2019, Cote d'Ivoire was importing over 1.5 million metric tons of rice.
Yeah.
And then the Ghana used reduced the benchmark values. I hope you understand the benchmark values.
Yeah.
That reduced duties.
Yeah.
When we did that, the year 2020, Cote d'Ivoire imported only 1 million metric tons of rice. What does it tell you? It means that about 500,000 metric tons were being smuggled through the Western Corridor, through Elibo, through Kojo Bedukrum, and all. So at the time, people were saying that goods in Kumasi are cheaper than that of Accra.
Okay.
That accounts for that. So when taxes are affordable, people tend to pay more. And then if they are extorsively high, they also dodge the system. And this is simple. And that we have to adopt efficiency.
All right, that's very great. So can we actually be specific on reforms and changes that we expect in the tax policies that can create a better environment for us? Specific issues on tax reforms.
So what we expect, especially with the VAT, is to make it uniform, and that I have proposed to the Ministry of Finance that if we have to go back to the flat rate regime where we all pay the same thing, it will be good. Or if you should go to the standard rate where everybody is on board, that we do not use any threshold, that people should be taken out, because business we need parity and fairness, because we are into competition, and so the VAT system should be addressed. That's one key area. And then we have to also revisit the port. You see, now we have about 22 cost items. That's why Asaki was so passionate to enumerate them, because if he named them all to you, AU levy, ECOWAS levy, and all that, and we don't get any benefit. AU levy for what? When COVID pandemic came and nations were trying to get vaccines and all that, AU couldn't got money to get this vaccine for the generality of Africans. And so, but we are taking all these levies, and so we have to prune down these levies at the port. If we're able to do that, it will help. And then also the tax excise duty. It doesn't help. You want to encourage people to add value to our great products. And now somebody is in Sawam. He has gotten some pineapple, you want to add value, and then you are charging him 20%. It doesn't make sense. How the person, because it shouldn't be that you want to industrialize and then you overprice the produce of your industries. What are you doing? So, for instance, feed juice. People have started liking it, but because of the taxes that is being paid here in Ghana, they cannot even sell to Togo. What benefit do you achieve? Now, Avinash Industries is collapsing. They produce, they produce oil, edible oil here, and they cannot sell their produce because the produce that is being manufactured in Togo is selling cheaper. And when you go to Okansi, the market, you see only the Togo product, because cost of doing business in Togo is cheaper. Because the goods that our brothers and sisters go to Togo to buy, you know that most of us go to Togo. Ghana is bigger in terms of importation than Togo. The goods that we go to Togo to buy is not manufactured in Togo. It is also imported, much as we have imported, and yet people go to that corridor to buy these imported goods, come and sell at far cheaper price than we do. So we have to reduce the cost of doing business, especially the COVID levy that we have mentioned, and then the special import levy. The special import levy was introduced by the previous government, that after the sunset, that they are in crisis, and that they pleaded with us to collect that 2%, and that after the sunset, they will remove it. The sun never got set. It has become a tax in perpetuity, because they are taking us for granted. And then the COVID came. There's no precedent in the world that the pandemic that is consuming, destroying businesses, that we charge a levy on it. Fortunately, the pandemic is over. COVID is no more there, and it has become a nuisance tax. You see, government itself recognized the fact that taxation impedes the growth of production. That's why they say that we have to move away from taxation to production. Now, so where did that slogan go? Why that laudable? Because that's why government itself came and he said that you are not progressing. Businesses are not thriving because of these nuisance taxes. 2017, they took away so many nuisance taxes, and now the nuisance taxes are creeping back in force and in other forms. So we have to be able to remove all these nuisance taxes, including the COVID levy, so that we can have our wealth, and then businesses can have the...
Dr. Obi has a lot to say.
Yes.
Dr. Obi has a lot to say. Let's listen to Mr. Wumi for maybe his few words regarding these issues. The changes to tax policies that you expect to make the business environment a bit favorable to you.
Well, generally, he has spoken a lot.
Yes.
So we expect, in addition, the growth and sustainability tax that was added, that was introduced last year. It's a tax that looks like it's robbery. The growth and sustainability tax, you're talking about tax on the gross profit of the company before the actual tax. So if you made 10,000 cedis, they will charge 2.5 or 5% depending on the category that you fall in. Then take that amount of money. Now before they apply the